healthcare is really the lion's share of our deficit. And one way to think about our healthcare problem is, if you look at how much our government, all told, federal, state, local, spends on healthcare per person, so this is dollars, it is very similar to the amount that governments spend in other rich countries. Slightly lower, but not much lower. We then double that spending by spending the same amount from the private sector, right? And so healthcare is a huge part of the problem. It has consistently been growing faster than anything else, faster than incomes, faster than GDP, much faster than inflation. We spend a lot on the now, on the older, on the consumption, and relatively little on the future, on the younger, on the investment. Julia Isaacs has done these calculations showing that we spend about 2.5 times the amount per person on people over 65 than we do on people under 20. Other countries in the world that look a little bit like us, the English-speaking countries, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, England, they're all closer to 1.5. And you look at the sequester, right? The sequester completely spared, well, almost completely spared Medicare, did completely spare Social Security. We focused our cuts on the portion of the government that applies much more to the young than the old.
In the book, when you open the chapter on revenues, you have an interesting sentence, which I'm sure you wrote deliberately. And the sentence is, after Medicare, Social Security, and the military, the final big pot of money available for deficit reduction is the income that the federal government is not currently collecting in taxes. What the hell does that mean?
So, you're right, that was deliberately provocative. It's one of those sentences that I realize it's the way people who are in favor of low taxes, think the mainstream media must think, right? That income is just, the government's just letting us keep it.
Right.
What I was trying to highlight is that by any measure, taxes are near a historic low right now. We went back at the Times and built this whole database to look at taxes over the last 30 years, and we found that at essentially every income point along the spectrum, people are paying lower taxes today, all told, federal, state, local, than they would have with the same income 30 years ago. We've basically all gotten a tax cut. And that's part of the reason why tax revenue the last couple of years has been, the lowest level since the early 50s, mid-50s? I don't know. But it's the lowest level in more than 50 years as a share of the economy. And so as we're thinking about what are the deficit solutions, it's clear to me that one of the most obvious, whether you think it's a good idea or a bad idea, one of the ones that has to be at the top of the list is what has changed. What has changed is that we collect less in taxes than we used to as a share of our economy. None of us feel that way. We all don't like tax.
Apart from this dip from the recession.
Apart from this, well, the recession is what really takes you down to the 60-year low. Right. And we're coming up from it, right, because Obama raised taxes. But just think of it, George W. Bush gave all of us a really big tax cut. The Democrats focused more attention on the part of that at the very top, and it was the biggest. But he gave us all a big tax cut. And so if you're looking at this long-term deficit, if you're looking at an aging society with really expensive health care, you can't pay for that with a historically low tax collection. And that needs to be part of the conversation, because either that requires fundamentally remaking government or it requires higher taxes.